Hello everyone, I'm Alex Dykes, and on this week's Child Review segment, we're taking a look at the Nissan Altima sedan. This is a Graco Classic Ride 50 child seat, and before we stuff it on the inside of this Altima, let's talk about general sedan sizes. Now in general, the midsize sedan category is very competitive, and all the midsize sedan entries are relatively similar in size. That means that fitting child seats in them is going to be relatively similar from vehicle to vehicle, with one notable exception. Certain vehicles like the Chrysler 200 and the Nissan Altima are a little bit narrower than the rest of the competition. Let's see how that fares on the inside. Being slightly narrower than the competition means that when we install 3 child seats across the back like this, these outboard child seats are actually touching the armrest, which is part of the door. We still have a little bit of room right up here where the curtain airbags would come down in the event of a side accident, but we do get a little bit less room than you'll find in something like a Honda Accord or a Toyota Camry. Well, the Altima does accommodate 3 of these relatively average-sized child seats. If you do plan on putting 3 child seats in your Altima, I do recommend getting slightly narrower child seats. They'll fit a little bit more appropriately in the center of the seat, and they'll give you a little bit more room right here in the event of a side impact accident. Unlike certain other mid-size sedans, the latch anchors are very well positioned in the Altima. They're nice and high up here, and I didn't have any problem with these rather large buckles that are on the Graco 50 Classic Ride child seats. That means it's a lot easier to cinch up the top tether anchor properly. I now have a rearward-facing child seat installed right here behind the driver. The important thing to note is that this driver's seat is adjusted for me at 6 feet tall, and I don't have any room behind this driver's seat, so it would be a little bit uncomfortable for me to drive with a rearward-facing child seat properly installed behind me. There's no room between this child seat and this driver's headrest, and that's a bad idea in the event of an accident because the driver's seat can move a little bit rearward in an accident, and it can impact that child seat. The reason for this is because the Altima has less rear legroom right back here, and therefore less accommodation for rear-facing child seats than most of its direct competition in this mid-size sedan segment. On the flip side of that coin, however, these rear seats are actually more comfortable for adults than a lot of the other mid-size sedan entries. How is that possible? Well, it's because the Altima has more headroom and these seats are higher up off the ground and they're a little bit less reclined than some of those competitors. It means you're sitting a little bit more upright, the footwells are a little bit deeper so you get more thigh support on these seat cushions, and you have more headroom right there in the rear. Overall, that means it's more comfortable than you'd think by its numbers for adults in the rear, but a little bit less accommodating for rear-facing child seats like this right here. Now let's talk cargo, because the Altima has one of my favorite trunks in the mid-size sedan segment, and it's not because this is bigger than the rest of the competition, because it isn't. It's because it's shaped differently than the competition. It's actually taller, and that means if I take out this large chair right here, that's a sort of a beach chair right there, and I pull out this 24-inch roller bag, you can, in theory, keep about the same number of roller bags in this trunk as you could in the competition, unless you arrange them like this, which is something that you can't do in the majority of the competition. This is upright, and as you can see, I can actually close the trunk lid right on that bag. It's not touching the trunk lid. You don't have to slam the trunk in order to get that suitcase to sit upright like that. It's a very, very handy feature, and you can actually put 3 of these bags across if you arrange them just right in that vertical position, and that means you can fit more cargo in here because of that efficiency than you can in something like a Camry or an Accord or a Fusion. Let's see how well those child seats fit in. First, let's remove these 2 large roller bags. We'll pop them in later if there's room. And let's insert our child seat. Right away, you can see how handy this trunk opening is because it's very large. It's very tall as well. Now, the one thing I do notice right here is that the trunk does get a little bit narrow as it goes towards the rear seat back. And that means I can't push that child seat quite all the way back into the trunk. Let's grab another. All right, I now have 3 child seats very easily there in the trunk. I'm going to put this 24-inch roller bag right here in a position that you couldn't do in any other car. And then I can actually shove this 26-inch roller bag in this position right behind that, all the way to the back of the trunk. And as you can see, I still have room to put some small hand luggage right over here. I could probably put another of these 24-inch roller bags in this vertical position right over here, and some additional hand luggage right there on that other side. In Nissan's quest to reduce vehicle weight at all costs, we do have 2 things that I dislike about this trunk. These trunk hinges do impact the cargo carrying capacity just a little bit inside the Altima. I think that's a little bit disappointing. But bigger than that, we don't have a trunk assist close handle on the Altima, either on the inside or on the outside to help you close the trunk. That means you're left to either paw at the fabric on the inside of the trunk right like that, or get your hands dirty and possibly scratch your paint by closing it from the outside. However, I think that's a relatively small price to pay for an incredibly large and incredibly practical trunk. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the Nissan Altima sedan. If you want to know more about the Altima, then go ahead and click down there at the subscribe button at the bottom of your screen and be updated on all of our latest videos, including the full review of the Nissan Altima coming up very soon. You can also find me over at facebook.com/AlexandAutos. You can email all of your questions to alex@alexandautos.com, and I'll see you next week.